A man who's been living in Canada for nearly 60 years may soon be forced to leave. Len Van Hees came to this country from the Netherlands when he was just 8 months old. He lived here, never became a citizen. He has served time for a series of crimes, including 9 months for assault, which he says was due to a mental illness that he developed in his early teens. This is now under control. Well, Mr. Van Hees is now facing deportation back to the Netherlands, where he doesn't have any family. Most of them are here. For more, we're joined by immigration lawyer Chantal Desloges. Immigration very popular in the news these days. Welcome back to your morning.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Van Hees has been living his entire life here in Canada, not as a citizen. How long does someone have to be in the country before they have to claim citizenship?
A person really only has to live in Canada right now for a period of 4 consecutive years in order to claim citizenship. So you have to have 4 years of residency within a 6-year time frame, and the government is in the process of revising that to 3 out of 5 years.
And why would somebody not choose citizenship right away?
It's really baffling to me. So you do see cases from time to time where people came as children and their parents, for whatever reason, maybe through an oversight or maybe because they didn't want to give up their original citizenship, just didn't apply on behalf of the children. And then when they're adults, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to travel. Well, in 2012, a bill was passed that allowed for automatic deportation with no appeal for any non-citizen who has served more than a 6-month sentence in this country. How does that rate in terms of global standards? Are we strict? Are we lenient?
Well, it seems to be a bit on the strict side. I did a bit of research on this, actually, and in other comparable countries like UK and Australia, the standard is set at 12 months. So 6 months is really quite a strict penalty. The reason that it's done that way is because in criminal law, if you get a sentence of 6 months or more, it sends you to the federal penitentiary. So the judge is sending a signal that the crime is very serious and should be punished appropriately.
And because we base our law on precedents, is there a precedent where Mr. Van Hees would be able to stay in Canada?
Well, since 2012, he does not anymore have a right of appeal. So there is no mechanism for his compassionate factors to be formally reviewed. However, there are some other things that a lawyer could do. For example, apply for a temporary resident permit for the minister to grant a special exception or to apply for humanitarian and compassionate consideration. But both of those things are very discretionary.
So when we hear about non-citizens who've been living here for a number of years, they face deportation. Is it typically because of a criminal conviction?
There are a few reasons why you could be ordered deported, although you're a permanent resident. Criminality is one of the most common ones. Misrepresentation on your application is another one. And staying outside of the country for too long is also a way that you can be ordered removed.
In this particular case, Mr. Van Hees is saying, you know, his crimes were committed as a result of a mental illness, which he has now got under control. He is also the primary caregiver for his mother, who is ill, and she's 81 years old. Could those come into play?
Yes, if his counsel requests a temporary resident permit or applies on humanitarian and compassionate grounds, those are exactly the kinds of factors that would be argued. And it would be nice, of course, if he had a full right of appeal, because that would give him extra protections. But there are still some mechanisms available to him to argue those factors.
All right, one last question. His deportation date is coming up very quickly. If he is deported, can he then reapply for permanent residency in this country?
He can, but it would be very difficult because he will be criminally inadmissible unless he obtains a record suspension from the National Parole Board. So that would really limit his options very severely. And of course, once he leaves Canada, a lot of his compassionate factors, which existed before, will no longer be there.
If you are living in this country right now, you have citizenship from another country, you've been here for a number of years. Given the climate around immigration, would you strongly urge people to go and get their Canadian citizenship?
I always recommend people to get their citizenship at the earliest possible opportunity. People think if they have permanent residence, it really is permanent. And there are ways that it could be taken away from you. So it's better to be protected and apply for your citizenship as early as you can.
Chantal, always good to talk to you and have you here. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.